And welcome to this week's edition of the program Discourse. I am Ibrahim Sani. Development is all about exploiting natural resources to advance to the cause of man. So many sectors, or rather, different sectors comes to play a greater role in this respect. The driving force in this, or rather the new pattern of development activities the world over, is holistic approach that is talking about involving all concerned, involving all sectors. Agriculture seems to be one of the critical areas in this respect. How far in achieving success, that is talking about how far in addressing for Nigeria, addressing our poverty problems, political problems, socio-economic problems, and what have you. In the program with me to discuss this and more, we are with Dr. Abinbola Adibu, Senior Agriculturalist with the World Bank and Task Team Leader of the Fadama III project. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yes. Talking about development is all about exploring or exploiting natural resources in advancing the cost of man. That is taking man to a greater height. And I believe agriculture is one of the critical areas. The driving force now is all about, so to say, holistic approach. Will you briefly give us a background as regards to this perspective of development that is talking about the Fadama III project as being introduced over the years?
Thank you very much. Actually, you are very right about your definition of development. The only thing is now that is coming into it is, yes, we must exploit the natural resources, but it must be explored. It must be exploited in a sustainable manner, and that is one area where Fadama becomes a program that is actually optimizing the natural resources in a sustainable way. Fadama itself is actually an irrigable land or floodplain or low-lying areas that is underlaid by shallow aquifers. In the past, these areas is present in all parts of the country, called different names, but they are actually a very good nourishing source of nutrients for all types of stakeholders, especially during the dry season. So what the Fadama programs, when they started in under Fadama 1, was to see how we can exploit that mineral resources in a sustainable manner to ensure that we can continue cropping even during the dry season. So we concentrated a lot on cropping those areas under Fadama 1. But it led to conflicts because there are actually so many stakeholders on that land. Okay. The cattle rearers also want to take their cattle there because during the dry season, to the Fadama area, it's during the dry season you have good grasses growing on that land, and they're always very nourishing to the cattle. So they want to go there. During the dry season, you also have farmers because the water table is very high. You have farmers also wanting to farm to get the best from the resources. You also have other stakeholders like the fishermen. They're able to catch fish easily, and that led to a lot of conflicts. So when World Bank intervened under Fadama 1, we were targeting crop farmers, but that didn't stop the conflict. So with Fadama 2, we were able to now say, okay, let's address this issue. Not only increasing production, helping productivity, but let's also attack the issue of conflicts. So in Fadama 2, we use an approach we call community-driven development. And just like you rightly discussed and defined development, taking all stakeholders along. So under Fadama 2, the CDD approach, community-driven development, took all stakeholders within the Fadama community along in a holistic manner, so that they can sit down, discuss about development affecting them, and then on the basis of that, determine the kind of projects to implement. So Fadama 2 was done in 12 states, and it was very successful in terms of increasing the income of the stakeholders, in terms of resolving the conflicts in a holistic manner. Now, because of that achievement, we are now into Fadama 3, and that Fadama 3 is now covering all states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. And the major development objective of that project is to increase the income of users of rural land and water resources
Okay,
in
Doctor,
a sustainable
before we
manner.
go much further, I want to clarify one critical area. That is, are you saying the holistic approach of the Fadama 3 project is the departure area between Fadama 3 and Fadama 2 and 1? I mean, what is the difference
Okay,
in terms of approach?
Yeah, thank you. For Fadama 1 and Fadama 2, the major difference is that in Fadama 1 we concentrated only on crops. That's one, and that did not solve the issue of conflicts. Then secondly, we also didn't use the holistic approach, which I call the community-driven development approach. So in Fadama 2, we introduced the holistic approach, the community-driven development approach, and then also we now took all stakeholders on board, not only the crop farmers. The pastoralists were there, the fishermen folk were there, the crop farmers were there, even the gatherers were taken on board. It's now operating as a community in Fadama 2. Now, Fadama 3 is not different in approach to Fadama 2.
Okay.
The only difference is now we are not concentrating only on Fadama farmers. in
It's not
Fadama
only
3.
the farmer.
We are now picking all users of rural land and water resources.
Okay.
So which means we have those who are doing upland farming also on Fadama. We also have people who are on Fadama land. So it's an extension. It's broader in scope and is deeper in intensity.
Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the issue of implementing this. One of the criteria is formation of cooperative societies, community bodies, and whatever in terms of grouping. How does this approach create perhaps so to say, the expected multiplier effect in terms of development of agriculture?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, in formation of groups, it is being done in a strategic way, and that is how Fadama is different from other projects, and will also help us in terms of the futuristic effect. The constitution of the community groups started with economic interest groups. In other words, we have those we call Fadama user groups. They are always people with common interests. Okay, so we are starting with, if we have crop farmers who are basically vegetable farmers, they are together as FUG. If you have processors, all they do is process agri products, they are in the group. If you have fishermen folks, they are in the group. So we have created economic units with common interests, common needs, common constraints. Now, these are the groups that are now federated as Fadama Community Association. It's like sending representatives to form the umbrella body. So that's bringing them as community groups becomes an approach that is good, because now that you have a group with common interests, common challenges, common constraints, they're able to work together. So that is...
You succeeded in bringing all these different interests into one to form common interest. I believe it is not going to be an easy task for the project. What are some of the likely impediments you have experienced in this respect?
Yeah, you're very correct. You see, when we started especially with Fadama II in 2004, I was one of the uh, first pioneers of community-driven development in Nigeria. About 4 of us actually were trained on community-driven development approach, and when we started and we introduced the concept, I remember when we put the permanent secretaries, the directors at the federal level and some at the state in Kaduna, and we were telling them about this paradigm shift, because it's a really paradigm shift, shifting power from the government or from the top to the bottom. They were totally against it. So that was the first constraint, the first challenge we faced.
Okay.
Even from the technocrats, they didn't believe it's an approach that was going to work.
Okay.
So it was, in fact, it was really rejected. By the time we finished the 2-day sensitization, almost half of the class had gone back that these people are not serious. Then the second impediment was also our target group, the communities themselves. When we introduced this project, coming from the background in which the communities have been deceived in the past, they have tried and things have failed them in the past. I remember when we started this sensitization, it was in Lokoja, in Kogi State. The farmers totally disagreed. They said we shouldn't deceive them again. Because one of the things they need to do, apart from meeting as a group, is for them to make contribution, put it in a bank. And for government to now see that they are meeting regularly, they have money in the bank, and they are operating as a group with a common constraint. And after that, government will now release money, to be able to implement the activity. They said no, it wasn't going to work.
Yes.
So that became the second constraint
Yes.
on the project. The third one we faced was also training our own people, including the facilitators which we're using, which form the liaison between the project and the farmers, on the whole concept, on the whole paradigm shift, on what they need to do. Because for me, I see it as more of letting power go to the masses. And it wasn't easy. What people are used to planning for the people, we are now saying, don't plan for the people, but plan with the people now. Plan with them. Let the planning come from them to you in terms of what they want.
Okay.
And then you can implement. And they say, no, things will not. So it was a big problem. But with the commitment of the World Bank and the fact that we had also seen this working in South Asian country, we were able to convince some, and it started gradually. And when people saw that the approach were working, they now started embracing it to the extent that in Fadama III, we have more than enough to chew. In fact, now I don't think, from the technical meeting we're just doing today, we're having problem even in Bauchi. What Bauchi is saying is we cannot meet the demands of the community based on the resource envelope that we have.
That is, are you saying there is now an increase in awareness, or rather an increase in participation of academic activities as one of the problems that you cannot be able to cover?
No. Well, it's not the increase in participation that we cannot cover. It's the fact that the resource envelope that we have to be able to fund the activities it won't be able to meet the demand of the communities. And that is the problem. That is why we're also encouraging some state governments who are able to see the results and performance of this project to also put in part of their fund to be able to help to alleviate poverty and to be able to help to increase productivity in agriculture.
Okay, that leads me to one of the next question. So to say you have visited so many places, I believe you are now in Bauchi for a kind of a meeting with officials, policymakers, and maybe beneficiaries of the Fadama project. What is your assessment as regards to the involvement of the government, local government, communities, and even beneficiaries so far?
You see, like you said, we have been to virtually all states in Nigeria that are on to this Fadama III program, and the results have been very, very encouraging in terms of participation of the communities and the way the state governments are embracing the program. In Niger State, for example, not only is the government embracing the program, they're also putting in their funds to run rural development in the Fadama way, where that is using community-driven development approach. And in Bauchi, I'm also glad because the presentation you are talking about, which were done today, we're actually reviewing implementation progress in the 5 northeastern zones of the country. Zone of the country, where you have 5 states. The same thing is being done in other zones. We're actually covering 6 zones. So as I'm here in this zone, you have some of my colleagues in other zones to cover implementation progress. And one of the things that came out of the Bauchi presentation today is that I could also see that from the local government point of view, local government, state government, they're embracing the program. They are paying what we call the counterpart contribution, except some that we're still expecting the state government.
Conditions of
Exactly. So they are paying the counterpart contribution, and even the local government at their council meeting, I read and I was told by the project coordinator that they have agreed that they are also going to incorporate Fadama programs into their local government budgets and work plan. And for me, that is very encouraging because it's talking about sustainability of these programs. Some local governments in Nigeria now are saying that, look, if you want to really work for the people, if you want to bring development to the people, let it start from the people themselves. I can count so many programs so many local governments in Nigeria now that when they want to do their annual plans and budget, they are consulting with communities in terms of programs. So we are passing the era in which a local government chairman wakes up and go to a particular local government or a particular community and say, look, my election promise for you is to give you a market. The community can say, no, please, we have a market that is functioning. We don't need market here. Okay. What we actually need are provision of bowl water for us.
Okay.
And it will be so easy. Or they can come, they say, no, we don't need that. What we want is a school for our community. So
that is
you won't have anything about duplication, bottom approach. And it will avoid duplication of efforts, duplication of projects, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Yes, doctor, this is a very good one. You see, the 2010 farming season generally, as a specialist, agri-specialist, so to say, ordinarily people would say we have experienced enough water, contrary to predictions earlier. And the subsequent thing is perhaps maybe increase in production. Perhaps maybe it leads to maybe price stability in market. What is your assessment generally as a specialist in this respect on 2010 farming season generally? I know we are now planning for dry season farming, but for the rainy season farming and production generally.
Honestly, I was expecting a bumper harvest, and what will not make me to really come up clearly in terms of how the expectation is going to be is the recent flooding incidents in some few states, because with the way the rain was this year, with what most states have done on agric development, and with what Fadama has done in terms of input support to our farmers, my expectation is to have a bumper harvest. And because we are thinking of something in terms of getting a bumper harvest, Fadama, in fact, World Bank in collaboration with other donor agencies, have been doing a lot in terms of post-harvest, that is the downstream activities of farming, ensuring that how do we handle the issue of reduction in post-harvest losses by ensuring that we have enough technology for processing of agricultural products, and ensuring that we also have something that can store agri-products and increase the shelf life of some of our agri-products. And that has been the plan. But despite the flood in some states, and despite the fact that it affected some agri-products, I am still very optimistic that we're going to have a bumper harvest. And what we need to concentrate a lot upon is how to handle the post-harvest activities to ensure that downstream activities are properly handled in such a way that there won't be glut in the market and the price will not go down for our farmers.
Okay. That is, I mean, if we can get it critically, that is storage activities,
The processing.
I think for quite some years, this has been one of the critical areas of concern to farmers in Nigeria. With what you have seen on the ground, how do you think that the facilities, the technology, the availability of even the commitment will be able to reserve or preserve some of these things to the expectations of your project?
Yeah, well, you see, with what we have on ground now, there is no doubt that this is inadequate. We don't have adequate preparation and facilities to be able to handle this issue of storage, processing, and marketing of our products. And that is what we're trying to do with Fadama. You see, with Fadama, we see it as a unique opportunity to transform Nigerian agriculture. The point is, how do we do that? Now, Fadama is in all the states of the Federation, which means if we get it right, we have a situation where if we change something and it's giving us result in Yobe State, Bauchi can copy, do the same thing, River State can copy, do the same thing, and we'll get the kind of results which we want. Now, the first thing we're doing under Fadama is we have a component there that is called component 4. And that component is actually collaborating with research institutes, okay, to be able to get existing and up-to-date technology to be able to handle some of our problems. The first thing we did under component 4 was to go around the whole country and find out the needs and the constraints of farmers. We now have a compendium of needs and constraints of farmers in the different zones. Now we're working with IITA and other research institutes in different crops area and the area of competency to be able to identify the existing and then also do a kind of what we call result-oriented research. Okay, because our research is not just do research for us. We're doing what we call a performance-based contract to them. We tell them that, look, we have identified the needs of our farmers on post-harvest technology. Can you supply it for us? If you say yes, give us your milestones. When are you going to give it to us? And then we'll pay you to do it. So which means you have no choice based on our project, which will release funds in tranches for you to give us results. And the results are targeted to a particular need. So the moment we get that, Fadama then disseminate to our farmers. So we're actually working on that. But that is not the only issue.
Yes, I wanted to look at the other side of the post-harvest, as you mentioned.
Okay.
That is the marketing aspect. Information gathers indicate that years back in the country, there is this issue of marketing boards and what have you.
Great.
But they are now, they could not be found now. How do you see this approach? Or is the Fadama project looking at this perspective?
Yeah. In fact, that's what I want to also say, that Fadama is also looking at that perspective. And how are we looking at it? You see, we have been able to see from South Asia experience, especially India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. We have seen that they also started in terms of agriculture just like us. And in doing that, they were able to introduce a lot of things. One is the ICT in agriculture. Two is the federation of community units, in such a way that marketing of their products, exporting of their products become very easy. The information is going around in terms of where to market those products, and the information is also going around in terms of how to market. And even the federation units are also taking control of the marketing of those products. Those things we are bringing into Fadama. In fact, by the end of this month, I will be leading about 18 participants, both federal, state, and community members, FCA, farmers. We are going to go to India and Sri Lanka and learn some of these things. How are they able to do it? So that when we come back, we start the process on Fadama in Nigeria.
Doctor, it's like Fadama Project, so many things to talk about, but the time slotted for the program is almost up. But let me seize this opportunity to say, maybe if you have a word or two as regards to, I will bounce still on the 2010 farming season, a word of advice as far food security to farmers, policymakers, and others?
Thank you very much. For our policymakers, what I want to say is for you to embrace and support Fadama. In Nigeria today, over 70% of our small-scale producers are in the rural areas. No matter how much we want to commercialize and work on large-scale agriculture in this country, we cannot neglect our small-scale farmers. And Fadama looks at the prime time opportunity to transform agriculture. And with the way we are going, we are introducing various elements. So we need the support of the policymakers to bring Fadama to the forefront in such a way that we can achieve our objective of Fadama. And then for our farmers, this season we are going to experience, I believe, bumper harvest in most states. The flood situation in some states may constrain a lot in terms of what we want. What I will advise is for them to please liaise with our projects and other experts to be able to know what to do in terms of post-harvest, because when they have those harvests from the farm, they have to think in terms of storage and processing so that there won't be glut for them and there won't be much wastage.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. It's a pleasure being with you.
It's a pleasure coming to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That has been the end of the program with Dr. Abinbola Adubi, where we talk on a number of issues as regards to Fadama project and agriculture generally. Dr. Abinbola is senior specialist with World Bank. He's in Bochi, irrespective of Fadama project in Bochi. Have a pleasant evening. Be with us next week.